Well, good evening, everyone, from our little bear meditation center, quite far north of the Arctic Circle. Well, we've been even farther north today to a city in Norway where the university, which is the farthest north, resides, although I do think there must be one at the North Pole in an esoteric manner. I'm happy to see you here with us. This is somehow very important full moon because it includes the idea of the SIRIUS festival and the recognition of the hierarchy by Sanat Kumara and all of the new members of the hierarchy. I mean, in a certain sense, once a person is an initiative of the first degree, even they are included within that circle. If I can, just kind of find that, I can show you what I mean. Yeah, well, here it is. This is considered the planetary hierarchy, and it does include in the lower realms even those who are on the path of discipleship and also on the probationary path. It's a marvelous chart. This was colored in by Keith Bailey from the AUM group, and the colors are of value, and also the details by DK, of course, are the main thing that we have to look at. But a lot of relationships about hierarchy can be discerned from this particular chart, and it takes it not only from our planet, and in other words, this particular circle would be found in relation to every planet with different names and maybe a different structure, and this is the solar systemic view. Anyway, the hierarchy is recognized especially at this particular time. Tomorrow, we have here in the chat box, do look in the chat box because it tells you what is coming, and tomorrow is the actual full moon, exact moment of the full moon broadcast that Tuija and I will be giving, and it starts at 11:01 GMT. The actual time of the full moon is 12:29 and 8 seconds GMT. So, wherever you are, you will want to be there. I've been working a lot on this question of identity, and we have this is the great sign of identity, one of the most human of all the signs, and there is there are several ways of looking at identity. The I am factor deals with identity as personality, and it's a very limited point of view, and that personality is taking up a lot of space in the field of consciousness. When one begins to realize oneself to be a soul, and of course it's easier said than done, you have to get that sense of a certain interior being that you are, and a certain interior consciousness, then we can rightly use the words I am that. And that in this particular case is the soul, the consciousness which survives the disintegration of the elemental factors of the personality, and which survives for millions of years in a certain sense. In a way, it's an extension of the monad, where we are beginning to find a real fundamental identity. Identity is what I want to talk about here, and then we have the mantra, I am that and that am I, and basically it has to do with each one of us is not only a monad, but the one monad of the solar system, the universal logos. I am that and that am I. Maybe a still more occult presentation of identity was given to Moses, probably Master Moria in that form, taking the third degree as the lawgiver and creating a certain rent, a tear, a rip in the veils of Maya. And he was told by the voice on top of that mountain, I am that I am. It's enigmatic phrase, but it has to do with the absolute substantiality, unrepeatability, causelessness of the one and only being and be-ness. And I just want to say we can talk about that kind of thing intellectually as long as we want, but there is a sense of it actually beginning to appear in the midst of all the diversified forms. And when that really begins to happen, and a kind of a sudden awareness of a presence that you sort of snap into, the apparent differentiation remains perceivable, but it becomes essentially seamless. You know what it is when you sew, there are all these borderlines. When you make a quilt, let us say, it's kind of like a mosaic, and all different pieces are sewn together. Those areas are seams, and they are demarcations, and we look at them as different, but the finer the seamstress here, the less detectable are the seams, until finally we get to the deity itself, where we have a seamless oneness in that I am, and behind it all is this homogeneous reflection of the Absolute, a pure being, a beingness, whatever you want to call it, no name will suffice. And ultimately, Leo points in that direction. There's so many important things about Leo. It's just showing up, at all the initiations. It is leading you into the first initiation, and finally, at the second, it is the sun shining through, the sun of soul shining through all of the erstwhile glamours and illusions. And at the third initiation, it's the great radiance of the causal body of the egoic lotus, when the monad really is beginning to come alive within the egoic instrument on the higher mental plane. And at the fourth initiation, it's the temple, which has to be destroyed, usually, by scorpionic and Vulcanian influences, so that a greater freedom can be achieved. In a way, it stands for the entire triad, the liberated triad, and, if cutting it short in terms of humanity, we might say it stands for the monad. And the monad is found at first on the second subplane of the cosmic physical plane. So it tells you that it's a blend of the first ray and the second ray, and Leo has very much to do with that. Leo somehow, although it does distribute rays 1 and 5, it is the king or the queen. It's kingship, queenship, it is rulership. So there's the ray 1 part. And very interesting about it, it is related to the fifth ray and the demarcation of identity. Now, the fifth ray is interesting because it, among other things, it rules the law of cleavages, and basically regarding our usual identity, there's a very strong cleavage or demarcation between what we think we are and everything else. And so that gradually expands until that cleavage is no more, and you end up being, instead of the point in the middle of everything, you end up being the relinquished point. You're given up, and then you give up that centrality, and instead you develop a centrality all through the field. So, God is an intelligible sphere whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. Well, this is so interesting because if there's only one being, obviously there's no boundaries. And so having extension, in space almost makes no sense because there's nothing for it to run up against. The actual form of absoluteness, well, who can say what it is? But it is the boundless, immutable principle. And somehow on our little level, Leo connects with that and suggests this, the great ruler of all, or maybe it suggests, what I sometimes call the first reduction of the absolute, which is the absolute deity, I call it. It can participate in activity, whereas the absolute is per se not an active substanding one. It's not. It just continues intensively to be what it is. How people are always insisting on being themselves. Well, that's a very low reflection and a necessary one of the fact that absoluteness really does continue to be exactly what it is forever, without beginning and without end. So it never changes its identity in the least. Any change of identity, from the absolute is a kind of a high-level illusion. Even the absolute deity who is active and dealing with absolute infinity is a high-level illusion, meaning that it's not the uttermost reality. Well, all of those things, we're covering in our identify as being group, and if you want to join that, just let me know. Infinitize8@gmail.com is my email address, and I can put you on the list, and I promise you your abstract mind will be challenged. So, okay, we have then the mantra. And the rulers, the sun is considered the triple ruler of Leo, but it's always veiling something. And what does this mean, that the sun veils? Then it basically means that the sun, as the personality, will not let the more refined energies get through it. It has to be lifted. The veil has to be lifted so that the energies of Uranus, the highest, Neptune, the middlemost, and even, believe it or not, Jupiter, because in the orthodox sense of rulership, Jupiter may well be veiled by the sun. Sun and Jupiter are very much alike in certain ways. Jupiter was going to be a star, basically, and it is the star in our, it is the planet in our solar system which is closest in identity to our particular solar logos, whereas if we look at Venus, it's closest in identity to Sirius and even has the same rays. So different planets have connections with different ones of the 7 suns in the 7 solar systems, of which ours is one. It's our local cosmic logos. So, well, anyway, there's a lot about the heart and a lot about the will and a lot about identity when we deal with Leo. Now, usually I have these side by side, but here is the rampant lion, demonstrating, I think, pretty much the first ray aspect of of Leo in the Jafra paintings, but it's also Apollo, the sun god, and his seven-stringed harp here, pointing to the vibrations of the seven rays, which are really, in a way, wherever they come from, because at the very height of the universe they're found, wherever they come from, they have to pass through the solar logos before they can be distributed to the planets and to other beings, including, finally, humanity. And so Apollo stands for the sun god, and he is, through his music, etc., distributing the seven rays. There's a great flowering, connected with Leo. The sunflower is a magnificent example, and it's filled with these seeds of the possible future. Sunflower seeds are very, very prominent if you take a look. And under Leo, we all have to flourish in terms of the name of God, which we are. Now, as a soul we have a name, but it's just a fragment of the name of the monad. And our monadic name must be expressed as an aspect of the divine will. So all of that is part of the flowering of Leo. So remember, the first and the fifth ray actually come through that constellation and make it to that the sign Leo, that is, let's put it like one of the 12 sections of the orange, as it were. These Davic atmospheres surround the Earth, and one of them is dedicated to Leo. So the first and fifth ray come that way, and there's a very strong second ray component in Leo as well, since it is the second fire sign. Aries, ray 1, Leo, ray 2, and Sagittarius, the body, the personality, ray 3. Maybe the thing that we disciples look at most prominently when we think about Leo is that we are Hercules, and the lion is the king of beasts. And we are, wrestling with that king of beasts because we are the soul, and we have to subdue the king of beasts, otherwise he will create terror up and down the land, So the personality, when left unsubdued, prevents the will of the soul from coming through. Well, finally, he proves his strength and his sagacity and his tactical methods, and finds a way to capture that ever elusive lion who's always escaping out the back door of the cave, So it's very hard to pin yourself down and to see what you're actually doing in terms of your personality. And when we can begin to do that, our glamours are fast fading away, and our illusions follow them, because right now we have a kind of a clouded vision, which is part of that king of beasts, and we need a clear vision of the soul. Obviously, Leo is connected with the light of the soul, and the whole idea of the eyes, and the way that light sheds itself upon the unrevealed and then discloses it. So there's a lot of interesting things here. I won't get too much into them, but I had a friend who took DK kind of literally. He said, well, it's very hard to draw the Capricorn glyph, how do we do that? And because it's very, very powerful, so purposefully it's been left out. Well, he combined the glyphs of the other two first ray signs, Aries and Leo, and he came up with some kind of, shape for this, what he considered to be the Capricorn glyph. Well, we'll find out what that is maybe when we can handle it. Right now, we've shown that we can't handle a great deal of the profound and powerful energies which descend. Now, Francis Donald has some wonderful images, and you can get those. BL's going to put the address at the Moria Federation. You can see the full information, she says, from both Michael and Francis on Leo. Okay, so inside the chat box, you can get Francis's detailed explanation. But Leo is always somehow ruling the burning ground. And what's interesting? This kind of figure in which the candidate has to walk across the burning ground to meet the initiator, who is a very, prominent, like I say, at all the initiations, is an epsilon, which is the fifth figure, fifth letter, at least, of our alphabet, and related to the fifth ray. So let's just say that when it comes to initiation, well, certainly the one initiator is very equipped with the fifth ray and is using that fifth ray in that initiation process, starting from the third initiation, but all the way up, even with the initiations of the threshold. That clarification that comes in with the fifth ray is very necessary. Plus, of course, the courage to walk across the burning ground. So, when it comes to, well, the fixed cross, you'll recognize it that Taurus is blinding light and Leo is fiery pain. Scorpio is bitter woe, it's great grief, and finally liberation in Aquarius, where the moon is at this time, even though we call it the Leo full moon, because the Leo energy is what's really important at the time of the Leo full moon, and thus it goes, where the sun sign is found. So a lot of courage is needed here, and to walk across this burning ground, such a concentration on the true objective, that the attention is not given to the outer form, and then somehow one can make it, and then all the dross is burnt away, and the purity of your identity is really beginning to appear, and the initiator waits to greet you if you have that courage and discrimination. So this is, you notice the Sphinx is here, and the head of the woman and the body of the lion, but sometimes it is the lion that is preeminent and the woman is secondary. I think Tuija is going to talk about that when it comes to the elevation of the Virgin, who is the Mother Earth, and her elevation and crowning by her son. She moves into the second aspect of divinity. But she'll say something about that. But at least here with the Sphinx, it is the woman, the human, who is again in the superior position. So this is a magnificent sign. It's capable of great abuse. All kinds of Black Lodge stuff has happened under Leo, because it makes a person excessively proud and focused on their own limited identity, and they fail to see the wholeness, and they won't go through the transformation process. And that's, well, that has to be watched all the time. The whole idea of Rome, very Aries and Leo, and the French kings, Leo, and Hitler had Leo in his chart, and Mussolini was, I think he was the sun in Leo. Yeah, I think so. That's right. And Japan, the Axis powers, talked about the rising sun as their emblem. So it can be misused, and we have to be very careful about how we use the Leo energy, because some kind of real humility is required in this sign, and heights of humble service are reached, notably, in this sign, but a few tough lessons have to be learned. This other image from Francis shows the Christ and his circle and his ashram, And basically, he is staring, looking at each one simultaneously. And we have to become the true individual before we can really become the member of the ashram. Sometimes you think you just have to kind of blend in and you can be a member of the ashram, but no, you have to show a distinctive ability along your own line as a real individual, and then your individuality can be united with that of others, and the ashram is truly enriched. I mean, Christ seems to be the great heart center. That's Leo. Leo rules the heart of the spiritual hierarchy, and also the director of the spiritual hierarchy, even though it is Sanat Kumara's ashram. And the color is correct, you know, the blue for the second ray. So I think what we have emphasized here is more the second ray aspect of the hierarchy, with the first ray being belonging to the Christ as the director. The interesting thing is that when he does reappear, he will carry a lot of first ray energy, and well, he has much on his own that he's built, but the avatar of synthesis, a great first ray extra planetary being, maybe even extra systemic being, it's hard to say, will be providing him with that, and the spirit of peace augmenting his second ray energy. And then the Buddha, who has that third ray monad, which is very interesting. You know, it's kind of given in the treatise on treatise on cosmic fire, will provide the intelligence aspect, and the Christ will be extremely well armed. But to really have intimacy with the Christ is a very high state, and he's so sensitive, you know, that in the Bible story, someone sort of touched his aura, or his garment, as he called it, and who touched the hem of my garment? He felt it immediately. And so, you know, he has this great radiatory aura, which is, well, I would say, with regard to humanity, planetarily inclusive. And he is the Prince of Peace, and he is in a way, the king of hierarchy, even though, you know, maybe that somewhat belongs to Sanat Kumara. So here he is in the circle of his ashram. And DK did tell us that the story of the Christ and the group gathered around him is a story of how an ashram really works. And so we can study the New Testament from the ashramic perspective and note how, well, you know, who's at home? Is it Jesus at home? Is it the Christ at home? He says one day the gold and silver threads will be disentangled, and we'll know when it is the Christ speaking and when it may be Jesus speaking. But, you know, he picked out of those around him the members that would serve as his ashram. I think largely initiates of the first degree, maybe some second, you know, etc. So these two images, very beautiful, and Francis, of course, has a lot more to say about the geometry here and the whole process. So I recommend, if you haven't read them, go to the Moria Federation under Esoteric Astrology and find them, or reread them. It's a good idea. Now, I want to, got so many things here that I just kind of forgot to pull out the meditation. All right, so let's get the meditation going here. One day this computer is going to explode from excessive weight of information. And there we'll go. Okay. All right. So, you know, a very, very important time for all of us. I mean, who are we really? The Delphic Oracle is at work, you know, and telling us if we know ourselves, we will know the world. And how many of us really know ourselves in the sense of lifting the veils? Not many, and we have to lift the veil, we have to, or at least attenuate the veils and see more truly within. And I think it can be a very big surprise. You know, we've been identifying with the personality for so long that we forget that maybe what we are is something quite different, and it gets ever more refined. So we can start to reach into I am that, I am that I am, and finally, maybe the most refined of all, I am that I am. And it kind of blends in with the Vedantan ancient saying, thou art that. It means something much higher than I am that. It means something like a pure being. So I really recommend meditation on identity at this time of the Leo full moon. I think we need, so many of us, a new sense of what our identity is. Okay, well, we're kind of not quite there, almost 12 hours before the full moon. I think, I think at 2 in the morning here, roughly, will be about 12 hours, a little bit later, 3:30, something like that. So we're still in this day of preparation, this day of dedication. And then in comes the safeguarding period, and then the period of distribution. So now I think, friends, we're ready for our meditation. Yeah, it's glad you could be here. I see a lot of people, and Leo is so important to approach in the right way, because, you know, it's the opposite. It's the opposite of Aquarius, the sign into which we're moving. And for the people who've been asking questions, I'm just going to ask Michael, BL, and Joe to see if you can answer any of those questions for people while I get on with the meditation. Okay. So, you know, at first we are very involved in the personality. However, we are really the consciousness within the personality. That's what the disciple really is. You can't say that the disciple is the personality. You have to say that soul consciousness, extenuated or extended within the personality, is in a way what the disciple is, the extended soul in a lower form of vibration. So let us withdraw that extension and realize that though we have the body and the etheric field, for all intents and purposes of this type of meditation, we are not that body, that etheric field. Later, of course, we are everything, but that's not what I'm talking about now. In the old Raja Yoga method, I have desires and emotions and feelings, but I am not those. And I have a thinking mind with many thoughts, many notions, and the attempt to reason and think logically. I have all that, but that is my instrument. I am not essentially that. And if you put it all together, you have a personality with its own ray and so forth, but it's my instrument. And I stand detached from it, just detached for a moment from your instrument, however close it may seem to you. So all those things could be dissipated, and who and what you are would still be who and what you are. You would find yourself in a world of light and of love and of spiritual sacrificial will, and that would be your vehicle. Your egoic lotus would be your vehicle. And we could say then, I am the soul am I. And that means, fading the usual point of identification out of the picture, because we're so used to identifying with the personality that it's an effort not to. But the personality is expendable. And we find ourselves in the field of the causal body, but we have to know that the true self is even deeper than that. The true soul is Atma Buddhi Manas, spiritual will, pure reason, intelligence, and finally, pure being is what we are more essentially. But let's imagine that we are in the inner worlds and we look out, and with all our co-workers we are as one consciousness, one soul, one being. We look out towards all the men and women of goodwill, and somehow we're very close to them, because our purpose is similar. Wherever they may be, it's as if we are somehow there with them and uniting with them. And we'll take it further, where the members of the new group of world servers, who are still more focally and intensively working to help their fellow human beings, we are united with all those servers in whatever country they may be. There's really no difference somehow. That the sense of I am here and you are there, that's really rapidly fading. It's as if every member of the new group of world servers is within our soul range. But finally, there's all of humanity. I mean, we'll just concentrate on this planet. There is humanity on all planets. It's some kind of humanity. And whether they're in the body or out of the body, it's the one humanity, and there's really not one member of this human race that we don't know from a very metaphysical perspective. Somehow we're in touch with all, and more than that, we are all of them. We're unified with them, but even more than that, we are them and all the forms of life on this planet until we reach that powerful second ray mantra. Naught is but me. Naught is but me. Don't let those words just remain words. Practice them until they are far more than words, but a trigger into what may be quite a new stage of inclusive consciousness. Now, we want to focus in the higher worlds, or at least remain receptive to them. We visualize the intuitional plane making its impression via the rainbow bridge upon the astral vehicle, passing through a pool of energy around the mental unit. And let's imagine ourselves bringing soul energy into that pool of energy around the mental units. And this is, the mental unit here, and from all of this energy is drawn around this mental unit, and the Antakarana is going to pass right through that pool and on up. There's no up or down there, but really intensifying itself until it reaches the triad. And then, our consciousness really changes. So, the Rainbow Bridge, it's we can visualize it. It is made of all the 7 major colors of the spectrum. We're going to imagine it somehow really, I would think, even from the pineal gland in the center of the head, through the astral plane, through the mental plane, through the pool of energies, and on up, but we'll enrich it by drawing in the knowledge petal energy of the soul, into that pool around the mental unit, and the love energy of the petals of the egoic lotus, and the sacrificial will energy surrounding the egoic lotus, and very important as a major energy in the egoic lotus. But now we bring it to the mental unit, and then the synthesis. Here, maybe I find a way to The synthesis petals will provide their growing apprehension of the oneness of things. We draw in synthesis to that pool of energy. And finally, there's something at the heart of the lotus. We call it the jewel in the lotus, and it is an extension of the monadic energy, and we draw that in. So all of these egoic lotus energies are drawn into a structure that's really in the lower part of the egoic lotus, we're told. And the Antakarana, the bridge of light, passes through them on its way to the monastic permanent atom, and on its way, when the day comes, to the Buddhic permanent atom and the Atmic permanent atom of the triad. It's really too much to expect right now, because those atoms are too high for the average human being, but on its way, and on its way to the monad. The Antakarana never stops until the heights of the universe have been reached. So even though our Antakarana may hold the color of our soul ray and personality most prominently, we will visualize indigo blue for the group purposes, the great second ray color, as that is the color of the emerging soul of our planet and of the Christ and his hierarchy. So take a moment to just visualize the indigo blue, largely indigo blue, many-colored Antakarana passing on its way towards the monad one day. And right now, the way we'll do it is when we send forth our invocation, we count on an energy from the higher places descending to meet our stream of energy, which cannot quite get to the Father's house, the Father's home, or even to the Atmic or Buddhic permanent atoms. It cannot reach it. So that's the way we'll do it. We'll sound an Om 3 times, and inwardly we will say the second ray word of power, I see the greatest light. The light of Shambhala, we imagine descending. It is for us the greatest light, and it illumines with wisdom and with love the group consciousness, light, supernal, love, eternal, peaceful, silent will. And maybe some power, some energy will touch us at this time of increasing Leonian intensity and open the door for us to what our identity really is, so we really can know ourselves. And there on this plane, the Buddhic plane largely, but also Atmic and Manasic, we have the great lords, and although we cannot really focus in that world, which is even higher than focus on the higher mental plane within the egoic lotus, which so few achieve anyway, we can receive. We can receive. So let us express our solidarity with the Masters of the Wisdom. Salutations to the Christ, the Master of all masters, the teacher alike of angels and of men. Salutations to the triangle of masters with whom we most prominently work. The Master Moria, the Master Kuthumi, the Master Jwalkul. Salutations to the Master Moria, the head of all esoteric schools and organizations, the one who strengthens and stimulates the will of the students. Salutations to the Master K.H. Kuthumi, the Christ of the coming age of Capricorn, and the one whose ashram is most intimately and intensively involved in preparing the way for the reappearance of his great brother, the Lord Maitreya. Salutations to the Master Jwalkul, who has given us the blue books and works most intimately with the training of aspirants for initiation, the first and second particularly, sometimes the third. So we express our solidarity and our willingness to be of use and to be helpful to these three who are really sponsoring the ageless wisdom as it comes before the eyes of humanity. And now salutations to your own master as you imagine him to be or know him to be. And salutations to the entire spiritual hierarchy of our planet, doing its best to elevate humanity and the other kingdoms. And may we learn to cooperate in the best way. So we've reached out to the heights and tried to establish our cooperative enterprise with the great ones, but in silence we need to think about, at least think about, Shambhala, the center where the will of God is known, where the one initiator has his focus, Sanat Kumara, the great king, and the one who has brought the will of the planetary logos to our planet. So we, as a group, we approach with all reverence, and we try to, in the silence, be somewhat receptive to however much of this divine will and purpose can get through to us. And the long internal silent Om, as we remain as receptive as possible and cooperative as possible with the energy that flows from the center where the will of God is known. There's no question that we have to learn as a group to be guided by as much of the sacrificial will, the spiritual will, one day by the divine will, as may be possible. When purpose and that kind of will really guide our lives, then everything will change. We think of the great solar logos, the heart of love, making our whole solar system a solar system of love, the heart of love within our 7 solar systems. May love, the great burning fire of love, pervade every one of us, regardless of our other rays. And during these periods especially, let us do all we can to be love beings, expressing with variety, of course, according to our rays and our astrological equipment, but expressing the energy of love. It's as if we can all come together wherever we are to a point of light, love, and power. Master DK will imaginatively at least be our guide as we together in that point move towards the indigo disk on the golden pathway, which shortens and shortens and shortens and is absorbed into the indigo sphere, the great color of the blue logos, the second ray color, and all of us in that new atmosphere within the indigo sphere. Let us imagine that. And let us try to be open as outposts, even just a little, to the consciousness of Master DK, who will guide us, even if imaginatively, though he says he will be on the watch as the group approach, or the groups, guide us into the presence of those energy flows which are available now. And the very first that we encounter is the triple sun, ruler of all levels of Leo. And we think about this pulsating heart, ringing like a bell on the second ray note, a second ray note, the G on a blue note. And when we look at the sun, let's not just think of physical phenomena, let's think of a great being expressing love, wisdom. And the rulers are the sun veiling maybe Jupiter, he seems to say so, the sun veiling Neptune esoterically, the sun veiling Uranus hierarchically. Expanding the consciousness under Jupiter, sensitizing the consciousness, feeling all under Neptune, rendering the mind truly occult under Uranus. and connecting with the archetypal world. The sun is a star, and in this particular sign the star rules, but he has his emissaries. So the sun veiling Jupiter, we need to expand our causal consciousness and to see in the light of the soul and go beyond our present limited horizons. And as we sound the Om, we imagine our group and groups benefiting from this inflow of this expansive Sun-Jupiter energy. So may our groups have an ever more expansive consciousness and an expansive sense of identity. Now the bluest planet in our solar system among those we know is Neptune. If you've ever seen its marvelous blue, it is not like Jupiter, the second ray soul, it is the second ray monad. And it makes the true psychic, which the second ray ever is. So all of us in our group and groups, we don't need psychism in the lower sense, and we don't need to be misled by all kinds of illusory forms, but we do need the sensitivity that will help connect us to SIRIUS, the brilliant star of sensitivity. So let's imagine that sensitivity to really subtle things flowing in to our group and groups. It is said that Christ knew what was in man, and he sometimes called Neptune. He had that tremendous sensitivity which eradicates, dissolves boundaries. Now we move into the sun veiling Uranus, and there's a special line of descent that includes Uranus, even though it's not a second-ray planet, it's included. From Sirius to Pisces to Uranus to hierarchy and to the heart and solar plexus and heart. So somehow it facilitates the archetypes living according to the perfect designs, with the second ray being the ray of the divine pattern, the perfect designs upon the monadic plane, ruled largely by Jupiter, and the logoic plane, in which Uranus has even a bigger part. All archetypal activity, Uranus. So it may break up many old conditioning habits and start a whole new pattern in our lives. So let's see our group and groups receive that Uranian energy and be willing to undertake in the right way that which is new. Our sensitivity will grow, and these three planets, Jupiter, Neptune, Uranus, they deliver from a very high place, and the Sun, a star. Jupiter and Neptune delivering from the monadic plane, which in a way they rule, and the Sun and Uranus delivering from the logoic plane. So let's, as a group, be very sensitive to that impression. Knowing that in a way it all comes from the Sun and the consuming fire of love of the Sun, of Helios, of Soul, whatever name we choose, the great heart, the great solar logos. At this Leo time, we can realize we are in a sea of love, and that hierarchy is that, and that hierarchy is recognized by Sanat Kumara at this time. The light, if we lift our sight even more toward the great constellation Leo, very impressive constellation, is the light of the soul, or the light of consciousness, the light of sensitivity. Leo aligned with Sirius, aligned with Jupiter, making a great triangle for the expansion of consciousness, and three great planets who are synthesizing planets, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, delivering the Sirian energy to our Earth, maybe through a planet called Isis, way out there, as Sirius is sometimes called, Isis. So this is a time when the burning away of all the dross and the true hierarchical inspiration can come to us. Sirius, Leo, and Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Isis. What a time it is to discover who and what we really are after so many millions of years of mistaken identity. So we imagine we're looking at that great constellation with it's got a sickle in it. It looks like the lion. It's got Regulus, the star of law and order, and the nebula, prominent stars, the light of the soul. And now we're going to meditate, I would say, on Leo, the sense of I am that, or I am that I am, with SIRIUS delivering its message as the local cosmic Christ. So let's start our pondering. Maybe you've been doing it already, and for those who can, work through until the moment of the full moon tomorrow, really, 12:29 and 8 seconds in the GMT. I am that. Do we know what that means? I am that, and that am I. We're beyond the stage of I am, but we're also learning that we are the soul, and maybe pushing ahead to realize that I am that, still greater that, I am that, and that am I. Veil after veil has to be lifted. Veil after veil has to be burned through or dissolved. We are no longer what we thought we were. Our consciousness is much more expanded, and our sense of being, our sensitivity has grown tremendously. Our sense of what an archetype is and how we have to fulfill it has grown. We represent the Syrian law of freedom. We represent sensitivity from the brilliant star of sensitivity. under Neptune. Under Saturn, we represent the law of karma as it is delivered to us by SIRIUS. These are really big things. And even Leo itself, its quality, says DK, is sometimes called sensitivity. And I would add to what is the self and what is the not self, if finally there ever is such a thing as the not self. I am that, and that am I. And that true self we are is not divisible. There's no movement in it. It is everywhere the same. It is pure isness, pure being. And this is one of those times to appreciate that this is the true self. After the veils are lifted and the rings pass not destroyed, I am that, and that am I. So we go deeper and deeper toward this point of pure being and consciousness, and finally we relinquish that point and find that we are everywhere. So let us keep the thoughts that came to us in mind. Some of you are on the verge of night and some are waking for a full day. Keep in your minds, I am that, and that am I. Look around, find that something which is different from form and more than you ever thought you might be. It all starts with what we call the one about whom naught may be said, our local one about whom, in whom there is a heart in the head center made of 7 great lords who work through 12 great lords who work through 12 zodiacal constellations, and Leo is one of them, probably very much related to the heart and also to the crown, the heart and the crown. And it sends its energy throughout its being, this 12-fold head center. And maybe there's a special relationship between Leo and the Sirian point, and Leo and the point of Orion, which some have said is an even greater heart center, into our 7 solar systems. That includes Sirius, our Sun, Procyon, Alpha and Beta Centauri, Altair, Fomalo, maybe Vega, at the magical throat. But it reaches our solar logos, this energy from the heart and the head of the one about whom naught may be said, and from the solar logos to Jupiter, to Neptune, to Uranus, thence to our earth, thence to the monad of each and every one of us, thence into hierarchy, thence to the soul of each and every one of us. This energy pours through the personality and solarizes it and makes a brighter light shine than has shone before. So let's do all, friends, we can to discover what our identity is at this time. And it is not maybe what we had thought it was. I'm just improvising here. Sometimes I stick to the text exactly, and sometimes I don't. And this is one of those times that I don't. The creative freedom of Leo, we might say. But let this be a very concentrated time for all of us, very concentrated. And let us emerge more radiant than we began. Now, tomorrow we start at 11:01 GMT in the morning, whatever time that is for you. And it's still for us about 14 hours away here in the north. It will be 14 hours away for everybody. So let us realize our tremendous opportunity and direct this Leo energy, this Sirian energy through the great invocation, through the light, through the love, through the power, that it spreads abroad, and let humanity become creative and fulfill with human hands and human feet all that must be done to bring the divine plan to earth. So we'll close our meditation with the great invocation and invite you to use our usual YouTube link tomorrow at 11:01 GMT, and then in the evening we have a special webinar where we will discuss SIRIUS and our solar system in terms of some of the more detailed relationships. And I think that you've probably received notification of that. I hope so. And if not, just write to Michael Stacy, to Joe, or to BL, and by now I hope you know their addresses. Or maybe BL will put those emails in the chat box, and they can inform you of the link for that special webinar. There's only 100 that can be there, so if you want to really participate, just act quickly, but the recording will be available. Thank you for being here, and now let's close with the great invocation, imagining the energies of Sirius and Leo particularly, and of Jupiter, Neptune, and Uranus being distributed through the invocation at this time. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you, everyone. Tuija will be leading that meditation tomorrow, and then I think the two of us will be working with you on the webinar in the evening. So, love and many blessings from us and all the groups that we're trying to represent. Thank you for your participation. And let's key things up as we approach this Leo Sirius full moon. Such an important one. Let's do our best. Okay, many blessings, and we'll talk to you later. This as soon as we can convert this video so you can play it on your machines, it will be available and you can share it with other people. All the very best, and bye for now.